Today marks the 25th anniversary of the SaGa series in the US. It launched in Japan on the original Game Boy as Makai Toshi SaGa in 1989, which was released a year later in the West on September 30th, 1990 as the Final Fantasy Legend. Of the 11 main games in the franchise, not counting remakes, only 6 of them were localized. Of those 6, only 3 of them contained SaGa in the title. Introductions aside, let's move on to what makes this series tick. Now, the origins of SaGa can be traced back to Final Fantasy II on the NES. One of the game's designers, Akitoshi Kawazu, implemented a unique change to the traditional turn-based RPG mechanics of the first entry. Instead of earning experience by defeating monsters, characters' stats would increase through usage. For example, if party members were attacked, HP and defense could potentially increase. These mechanics were wiped in the next Final Fantasy, never to return. Despite this, Kawazu was given the opportunity to direct his own game, which would become a series of its own. SaGa. Kawazu has either directed or produced nearly every game in the series. While the games may differ, it's clear he's had a clear vision of the series since the beginning. There tends to be an emphasis on an open world aspect where the stories take a backseat to the adventures set forth by players. With that aspect in mind, most of the games either allow players to create their own parties and or choose characters to begin the games with, offering alternate stories to a bigger whole. Then of course, they're all turn-based RPGs with mechanics that more or less began with Final Fantasy II. So, what are those 11 games in this series? It all began with Final Fantasy Legend 1, 2, and 3 for the Game Boy, Romancing SaGa 1, 2, and 3 for the Super Nintendo, SaGa Frontier 1 and 2 for the PlayStation 1, Unlimited SaGa for the PS2, Emperor SaGa for mobile devices, and Imperial SaGa, which just released this year as a browser game. Now, there have been a numerous amount of remakes settled in there, mostly around Final Fantasy Legend or the first Romancing SaGa. It'd be nice to actually have some of these games in a bigger collection, and like I said, only 6 of them came over here. That would be the Final Fantasy Legends, as if I wasn't clear enough with that, Romancing SaGa's 1's remake for the PS2, which was Minstrel Song, SaGa Frontier 1 and 2, and Unlimited SaGa. Now, you would be counting 7 of those, and yes, that'd be 7. Counting the remake of Romancing SaGa, that would be 7. And now I'm blathering. But anyway, I've never played any of these games in my life before this video. I purposely got them all so that I could capture some footage and so I can understand what really makes these sagas, really tick. And they really are the same kind of styles. I dig this unique style. The mechanics were basically broken in Final Fantasy II, and they've kind of been fixed since. It's not so easy to power level your characters. They're very complex, they're very unique. Like I said, Kawazu has had a clear vision, and he takes no guff. He wants to create the series that he wants to create, and unfortunately, the thing has been kind of dormant since Unlimited SaGa 2 on the PS2, which was released in 2003, at least in America, I believe. And since then, there's been remakes in that mobile game for Emperor SaGa, and then an Imperial game. They just announced Scarlet SaGa, or actually SaGa Scarlet Grace for the PS Vita. Who knows if we're going to get that game? There's a spiritual successor called The Legend of Legacy, which has some of the team from the SaGa series coming out for 3DS in a couple weeks here. So it's not that we're not getting any kinds of SaGa games, it's just that, I don't know, this series by Square Enix kind of has, taken a backseat. It's been forgotten. It's very, like I said, it has a unique vision, and, it has its fans, but it also has a lot of haters. A lot of the games aren't exactly great or good, if you want to quantify it in such terms as a reviewer. But one thing that the games really are fabulous with are just the art. SaGa Frontier 2, for example. Look at this game. Look how beautiful. Everything looks hand-painted. The same can be said for Unlimited SaGa and then that Romancing SaGa remake. These games just look fantastic. The art, oh my gosh. But some other aspects of the game's mechanics and overall story is just kind of weird. It's weird. It's a very weird series to talk about. Again, I have no direct connection with the series at all. And there's numerous reasons why I haven't played any of these games. The Legends series do not interest me just because they look a little bit dated in both the looks and the mechanics. I can play Romancing Saga and Romancing Saga 3 for the Super Nintendo versions because they have pretty good English patches. Romancing Saga 2, not so much. Saga Frontiers, those games are super hard to find. Unlimited Saga, again, beautiful, but just not a very good game. And the Romancing Saga Remake, again, hard to find. Again, I could just play the Super Nintendo game. But the mobile game, obviously, I cannot get either. And Imperial Saga, I kind of dig, as I've done a quick throw of it very recently, but again, I can't understand what's going on. There's two games that I actually really do want to dig, going back to Legends. There is a remake for Legend 2 and Legend 3 for the DS that are really gorgeous and awesome, and I wish they would come over here on some kind of service. They have been English patched to a good degree. Not perfect, but still very good, and that's kind of how I want to play that series. But alas, you know, like a lot of games that only appear in Japan, we'll probably never get them, and that's a very, very sad affair. But, you know, I want to shed some light on this series because it's important. It's a dark, you know, RPG spot in my history, and I aim to correct that someday. For now, I'm just going to wish this series a very fond, happy 25th anniversary.